Hello and welcome back to Idioms for Us with Will, and today's topic will be crime. So let's have a look at some crime idioms. We'll look at when to use these idioms in speaking, and of course how to upgrade them when you're writing in task 2. So firstly, let's look at a few idioms in context. So we have the first one is face the music. That means to accept punishment. For example, he broke the law and had to face the music. He had to accept punishment. To be caught red-handed, and that means to be caught while committing the crime. So the thief was caught red-handed by the police in the middle of doing it. Crime doesn't pay, and that means crime has consequences. To break the law, and maybe a lot of you know this one already, and to bend the rules. That means to cheat without breaking the law. Here's a speaking part 2 question. Describe a news story about crime that you found interesting. And you could say something like this. I recently read about a famous athlete who was caught red-handed taking banned substances. Although he tried to deny it at first, he eventually had to face the music. The public reaction was huge. So there we have red-handed. He was caught doing it, and face the music, to face punishment. So there's two of these idioms with some other nice grammar, who, a relative clause, although a nice linking word. So you could now pause the video if you and try to think of a crime story that you could use at least two of these idioms in. So why not think about one? You need a good example when you're talking in part 2 about crime. So think of one good example and how to explain it by using at least two of the idioms. Let's go to writing task 2 now. So the question, many believe that longer prison sentences are the best way to reduce crime. Others argue for alternative solutions. So this would be a spoken answer. People who break the law must face the music. But it's not very formal. In fact, it's not formal at all. So we cannot write this in task 2. So we would have to rewrite it and make it sound academic and formal. Here's an example. Individuals who commit criminal offences should face appropriate legal consequences in order to deter future crimes. So hopefully you can tell the difference in register, how one is very formal and the other is very informal. And this is the difference that we're looking for, but the idiom is very useful for speaking. Another challenge, you can choose one of the idioms we look at today and try rewriting it for a more formal sentence or a more formal academic essay. We're going to try some of that now, so let's have a look. We want to change some of the spoken answers using idioms into written answers using more formal language. All right, so the first one, I missed too many deadlines at work. So eventually I had to face the music and explain myself to my boss. So it's not a crime this time, but it's still using the idiom that we've looked at. Second one, the shoplifter was caught red-handed by the security guard with the stolen items still in his bag. And the third one, I think the story of that famous hacker proves crime doesn't pay. He ended up in prison for 5 years. All right, so these are spoken answers. Now you must make these answers more formal. So if you wish, take a moment, pause the video, try to make them more formal. So maybe you have written your answers more formally. I'll show you some suggested formal versions of the speaking answers for writing. So number 1, employees who fail to meet agreed deadlines should be held accountable for their performance. So you don't talk about I in the writing, you have to make it formal. So it's no longer talking about I did this and I did that. The suspect was apprehended during the act of committing the offence with the stolen goods in their possession. So in this time they said suspect instead of shoplifter, but I think Shoplifter would be okay in your writing task too, because it shows a specific kind of suspect. Engaging in criminal activities often results in serious legal consequences, which can outweigh any short-term gains. So that proves that crime doesn't pay. So you're really reformulating the crime doesn't pay into engaging in criminal activities, crime doesn't pay, results in legal consequences. All right, here's two more. See if you can write formal versions, at least translating the idiom. So people who break the law should be punished according to the seriousness of their offense. Sounds quite good. Don't like to hear the word people, but in general, the vocabulary and grammar are quite good. Some companies bend the rules when it comes to tax payments, even though it's not technically illegal. So you're bending the rules, but it hasn't broken yet. All right, so these are quite informal uses of the idiom. Can you use them to mean roughly similar things, but with academic and formal English? Here's my suggestion. Individuals who violate legal regulations should face proportionate penalties based on the severity of their actions. So people who break the law become individuals who violate legal regulations. Instead of just being should be punished, should face proportionate penalties equal to the crime according to the seriousness of their offense, based on the severity, seriousness of their actions. The last one. Certain corporations exploit legal loopholes, good word actually, to reduce their tax obligation without directly contravening the law. Breaking the law is a good word to use there, contravening. So some companies bend the law. Instead of bending the law, what do? Usually they look for legal loopholes. Loopholes are little spaces where the law is not very clear, so you can use that to your advantage without breaking the law. So some nice words there also, if you can see. But again, what is the tone of the first one and what is the tone of the second version? All right, so quick recap of what we've seen. So we saw face the music, which is, again, most of these are not very useful for writing, more for speaking, but it's interesting to be able to change the meaning into formal English. So you're going from a difficult spoken English to quite difficult writing English. So face the music, caught red-handed, crime doesn't pay, break the law and bend the rules. And I think maybe break the law is the only one really that I can see in your writing task too. The rest, I mean, even bend the rules perhaps, but they're quite informal, and so you have to reformulate if you want 7 and above. That's the point. So you can use idioms confidently in speaking to show your fluency, get the better mark in vocabulary, but then you have to upgrade them or tweak them in writing to make it more academic sounding. I'll leave you with a little challenge here. So rewrite this sentence for writing. So this is a spoken sentence. You have to change it to something very formal and academic, and mostly you're focusing on the idiom. So crime doesn't pay. How do you reformulate that? So people should think twice before breaking the law. All right, so if you want me to see your answer, check your answer, write it in the comments below. I'll check it out, and I'll see you next time when we'll be talking about the topic of education. See you next time.